God.
Right, we can't have any preamble, Matt.
Um, no preamble today. Just straight into
We've got
the
to be straight in there
meat,
because we're going to put this up on YouTube and unedited, and the
unedited.
YouTube audience are very fickle.
They're reckless,
Yeah, they're very,
ruthless.
very quick to judge a video. I mean, even as I'm speaking, they're looking in the top corner. They're looking at the other videos they could be
Yeah,
watching. They've got no attention span, so we've got to be straight in there with with
exactly.
exactly
No
what we're
faffing
doing,
around.
so that they can identify what this is immediately, and they know, okay, this is the sort of thing I'm
Yeah.
watching. Because any confusion, if there's any sort of ambiguity about what this is, people are like,
Yes.
oh, I can't understand.
Yes.
Is this a podcast? Who are these people?
Yeah.
What's
Is it
going
meant to
on?
be funny? Is it meant to be like radio-y, bantery stuff? Is it meant to be political analysis? Any ambiguity like
No.
that
Is
just
it
ruins it
left
all.
wing? Is it right wing? What is it? What is it
Exactly.
selling us? What's the agenda? Is it
Yeah.
Russian propaganda? Is it against Russian
Yes.
propaganda? What is? Well, I think it's probably all of those things sometimes.
Yeah, but basically, we don't want to mix up any of that
But no,
in the
it's
viewer's
none of that.
mind
Sorry, it's none of that.
because they're not able to take that on, are they? Because they're
No, no, but that also that's a good thing because we love the YouTube audience.
oh yeah,
They're
you
so great.
love you guys.
Anyway, so let's quickly get on with what we're going to talk about, which is Liverpool.
Liverpool United.
Yeah, Liverpool United, great football team. Let's just talk about the great times in Liverpool. And they're not even called Liverpool United, but it's off to a bad start.
Okay,
What else
sorry.
can we talk
Up
about?
this, up
Yeah,
this.
I'd like to talk about Starmer's failure, Trump's failure, the woke
Yeah,
right. I said
yeah.
last time that I'd speak about the EU, but
God, there's a lot on. I was gonna put a casserole on, but come on then, let's get
well,
on
you
with
could
it.
probably do that and cook it and eat it, and I'll still be banging on about the EU. You just come back and be like, yeah, well said, very concise.
Okay,
Yeah, hopefully we won't have time for the EU. We can do a news night and say we don't
yeah,
have time for it. But Liverpool, I mean, it is
yeah.
football related, obviously.
So what happened in Liverpool? Was it like a crackhead who just was trying to escape the police and he just put his foot down on the accelerator?
Well, that's what I thought. And there was initially they mentioned that drugs were involved, but now he's been
Yeah.
charged. He hasn't been charged with any drug-related offenses. So the plot thickens. It's getting ever more
Ah.
mysterious what's going on.
Very
But I
good.
do feel like Liverpool, I mean, that city just cannot get a break. Because I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Liverpool. I've only been there a few times, but I really like it. I really like I don't want to be like, oh, it's the politics. But I do like the politics of Liverpool. That's not the only thing. Like it is a really nice city to go to. And they have had some tough times. And
Mm.
Liverpool FC won
Yeah.
the Premier League. They've only ever won it once before now, and that was in 2020 when they couldn't have a parade.
Mm.
So I was quite happy that Liverpool won this year
Mm.
because it's always good to see a new team winning. I know, okay, Liverpool had won it. They didn't really get the full thing where you do the parade. And then they got it this year. And then
I thought Crystal
again,
Palace won.
say again,
I thought Crystal Palace won.
won the Premier League.
Oh, sorry, the FA Cup I was thinking of. I was at the pub. I was only half concentrating. Okay, you can't expect me to concentrate on the whole
What do you
league.
think they were celebrating in Liverpool at the weekend? Crystal Palace's win. They're just they're just so
Yeah,
nice up there in Liverpool.
they are very, very nice. They like to celebrate Crystal Palace, I'm sure.
Where you're really quiet now.
Oh,
That's slightly better.
should be all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's fortunate I've got fuck all to say, so
Yeah,
it's very,
that is
very appropriate.
lucky, but
Continue with this. So what happened? So it was a loony bloke, and that was at the football celebrations for the league, and now he's been put into custody. So what's the big mystery about it? It just sounds like a
but
fucking like
why the fuck did he
he
do
lost the
it?
plot. He lost the
Obviously,
plot.
if he was a Muslim, there'd be no questions because that's what Muslims do. They crash cars into people.
Yeah.
But the fact there's a
Mm.
white guy, it's like, well, why would a white guy crash a car into people? Maybe the lesson is we're not so dissimilar, Matt. You know,
Yeah.
we all have the proclivity for mass violence and murder. But
Yeah.
no, doesn't seem to be any
Nice
motive.
thought. It's a really sweet thing to say. Thanks,
Yeah,
Daniel. That's cheered me up.
yeah.
Starting to get a little bit depressed today, but that's really brought us all
Well,
together,
it's
hasn't
good
it?
to see.
Whether you're Liverpool or Crystal Palace United or the
or
Villa
2CTV.
or 2CTV, we can all come together and agree that at some point or another we could angrily drive into a crowd load of people and ruin the. I don't know. I'll stop there.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a nice thought to begin with.
Yeah, I tried. I tried to salvage this day. Been a bit stuck in today, really. It's very hot.
Nobody cares, Matt.
I've
Remember,
gone a
this
little
is
bit mad.
unedited on YouTube. We've got to
You
stick.
usually edit. I'm expecting you to say that it's unedited, but then obviously edit it.
Well, no, I don't
Like,
edit it if we put the whole thing on YouTube because I don't like
oh
because then you can
God, well,
see the edits. So it's
well,
got to be a
okay.
really strong episode. I mean, it depends. I
Okay.
mean, if it continues like this, I will inevitably not
Then
put it
you
on
will be
YouTube,
forced to edit
and
it.
it will become just another podcast with a lot of edits in it.
Oh dear. Okay, that sounds
It's
good.
really on you, Matt. What happens? What you want to see?
Mm.
But yeah, there was
Okay.
well, I mean, the big thing, well, for me is like, what the hell is going on with this guy? But for most people, the annoying thing was that they mentioned that he was a white guy immediately, and that's not normal for them to identify the person so quickly.
Yeah, but they have
Uh,
to identify the ethnicity these days because those people go completely mental, don't they?
yeah, well, that the thing is that the sort of people that are complaining about it were the people that complained that they didn't identify the guy in the summer. So I can kind of think that
Yeah.
that's kind of, on them to some degree. But they think, well, if it had been a Muslim, then they wouldn't have identified him so quickly. But I think,
Yeah.
they shouldn't have. They should have waited at least a week because it's such, I mean, if it'd been anyone else, like a woman, for example, then that would have been another issue because of the driving, But I
Because
mean,
it would have created a lot of hilarious jokes about driving.
right, exactly, which you came up
Mm.
with, to be fair. But
Yeah.
the fact that it was like a middle-aged white man and also looks, he looks the part, bald, right sort of build, it's like they should have released that after a week. Let everybody get their kind of
Just
Muslim.
completely freak out about it and then be like, ha ha,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was some
yeah.
white bald bloke. Ha ha, you bunch of bloody racists.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that would have been funny. But could have led to complete disaster, I
Well, I
suppose.
think if they
Because,
had left it a week, like the fever pitch of sort of frothing conspiracy theories about Muslims
yeah,
taking over
yeah,
would have been so big that no one would have believed it. I mean, people are very
yeah,
skeptical as it is. The
yeah,
fact is
yeah.
that in the video footage, someone opens the car door at one point as they're trying to stop this guy, and you can see very clearly that it's a white guy. I mean, if there wasn't
Oh,
that footage, it would already be all over for this idea that it could possibly be a white man that would do such a thing. But you could
how did
say,
he tell me this? How did he manage to injure like 70 people but kill no one? How do you injure 70 people?
well,
I don't really, I don't
have you
know.
watched the footage?
Well, I only saw a few seconds of it. I don't really quite, I didn't seek it out.
Well, I did. I watched the whole thing being reported.
You Googled it.
Oh no, I watched it on 2CTV. 2C likes
Oh,
to
excellent.
2C's got this kind of fantasy that he's the head of a global news organization. That's how he presents himself. But he's just a guy in his bedroom, and I
Yeah.
can sympathize, as I say, with a guy in his bedroom talking about the news.
Yeah.
But I don't pretend that I'm head of some sort of media conglomerate like he does. He's got this sort of little setup with his little
Yeah, that
miniature.
is odd.
He's got a miniature US and British flag. So it's quite cute. And he speaks as if, I mean, he's just on Twitter, right? Looking at Twitter and then
Mm.
telling the camera what he's reading. And then we're watching him basically on his Twitter feed. But he presents it as if news is coming in. I'm getting reports from
Yeah.
all of my team in Liverpool are telling me. And it's like, you're just on Twitter like the rest of us, mate. But the thing about him is that he had the raw footage. He had the raw data. If you watched any of the stuff about the crash on BBC News, they blurred out the actual moments when he impacted human
Uh,
beings. And yeah,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
can understand why, because I watched the raw stuff because Tusi likes to raw dog it, and it was pretty horrible. But
Uh,
why none of the? I mean, I don't know why no one who's killed is very lucky, to be honest, because
yeah, yeah.
it was pretty mad. But I think the thing was he didn't just go in full speed into a crowd. He was
Mm.
kind of going through the crowd And then he sort of
Mm.
seems to have got like angry, or this is why I think people initially thought it was drugs. Because he starts to just try and get,
Uh,
it's almost like he's trying to get out of the crowd by just going through the crowd. So he's sort of like stopping and then
just
speeding up and then stopping again. And people are kind of getting out of the way and falling over each other. Yeah, it's really, and then other people are trying to stop him by like banging on the car and trying to open the door and stuff. I
uh,
don't like this is, but why he was there? This is the other thing. It seemed like
mm,
he followed an ambulance that was so there obviously the whole area was pedestrianized for the parade, and there was sort of police cordons and stuff to stop people going through. But some of those were taken down temporarily so that an ambulance could get through for an unrelated incident. And it seems that he followed the ambulance. Maybe, and this is why maybe it was like he was on drugs. He had no idea. He was a bit like you. He didn't know that Liverpool United had won the FA Cup. He thought,
yeah.
he was like, I thought it was
He was a
Bradford.
53-year-old fat, bald white man.
Yeah, pretty
And he
much.
was on drugs when he was terrible at driving. What are you
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. And he was hungry because the co-op had been empty all week. And he's going through Liverpool city centre. He's trying to get somewhere. And he's like, what the fuck is going on? All the roads are closed. This is very annoying. And then he
Yeah,
sees an ambulance go through and he's like, oh, I'll just get through with this ambulance. And then he finds he's in this big crowd. That's what it seemed like. And it's still
yeah.
possible. But the fact that he started ramming into people, if he's completely
Mm,
sober, seems insane. But some people are quick to getting angry about certain things.
yeah,
And there
yeah.
is stuff
It's
like, I mean, the way that you see the sort of people on Twitter talking about him, I don't know if this is true, but they're suggesting that he like followed a lot of people like Andrew Tate and Nigel Farage, and you retweeted these people, and it's like that. Well, that just explains it, doesn't it? And it's like, well, you're just doing the same thing that they do, aren't you? By saying that, if you are somebody that is a fan of Nigel Farage's politics, then you probably like to smash people with your car. And it's clearly like there's just, I mean, there's no evidence.
you're notorious for riding the clutch if you vote for reform.
Exactly. Your microphone is, I'm gonna have to, I'm really
Oh,
annoyed with this because I'm gonna have to mess with the sound. I can't just put this out if you're not.
maybe you should edit
No, no.
it. Maybe I'm forcing you to edit it. Hang on,
Well,
I'll
I
stop.
will have
Oh,
to edit your sound.
Pissed around with the I pissed around with
That's,
the lead in my fist.
yeah, I think the lead is
That was my mistake.
dodgy.
Can blame me. Don't blame the microphone. Poor microphone. It always gets a lot of grief, this microphone. It's actually me. It's my mistake.
Yeah. Well, you would get the blame anyway. Oh, I blame Beryl. Oh, I can't blame Beryl because we fired her.
Fired her. She's out of here. She's gone to the Costa del Sol with her payout from this massive podcast. We need another couple of
No, that didn't
employees for
happen.
this
We didn't
podcast.
we didn't pay
Oh, we
Beryl
didn't do that
off.
in the
That's
end.
a big
Oh,
scandal. Like, no, no. It wasn't a golden handshake for Beryl. No, we got rid of her fair and square.
yeah. Yeah. Pushed her down the steps.
Anyway, let's quickly remember the YouTube audience. Remember their fickleness.
Yes. At any point, they could lose concentration in this first glorious 22 minutes. I
They could
mean,
start. They
they
could.
haven't yet.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the great thing is if they're listening to us now, then they're people that haven't done that.
Yeah, I reckon it's people who don't know what stop button is on any of their devices if they're still listening.
Well, there's still
I,
enough of those
there
around.
was a very terrible Peter Cook album in the 1990s, which was reviewed as a comedy to paint your walls to, and it was basically just meant to be so sort of slow going that you could just roller a whole wall of your living room while listening to it. And I like to think that that's my contribution to this podcast. And a big hello to all you truckers out there.
So what's my contribution?
Oh, you're the energy. You're the fizz. You're the Jackson
So,
Pollock
so what are people
on
supposed to
my
make of that? They're trying to paint, and then suddenly they're getting all bombarded with energy. They have to do. What do they do at that point?
wow. I guess they get confused and excited and relaxed. It's a bit
Confused and
like
excited. I like the sound of
confused,
that.
excited, and relaxed. It's like the end of a very good date.
I think that's a good we should put that as the tagline for the podcast.
Maybe not the confused bit.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is
Confused because you're
getting so
thinking,
close now to thinking
how
about
did
editing
this
this.
work out so well? Yeah, I'm
We're gonna
slowly making
push
the case
through.
for
There's gonna be
an
no
edited version.
edits.
Next
Let's talk
topic.
about next topic. Well, I think that topic was supposed to lead into another. Oh yeah, the woke right.
Yeah, what's that again? I keep getting mixed up. That's just old-fashioned identity politics people on the right, isn't it? Just the usual loony crowd from way back. Or is it
Yeah,
Douglas
probably.
Murray?
Well, right, that's the thing. It's one of them, or maybe he's a both of them. But
Yeah.
there's the woke right. It sounds like something that the woke left would come up with, but the woke right is something that the presumably non-woke right have come up with. And there is a lot of confusion about what it means. I watched a
Mm,
video by James Lindsay. I don't know if you know him.
mm,
He had quite a. He was talking to who's the guy? Quentin Crisp.
yeah.
What's his
Okay.
name?
Quentin Crispatino.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
And his silent friend, who's you.
Oh,
That's
do you mean
you.
trigonometry?
Yeah, I'm talking about trigonometry. Yeah,
Quentin Chris. You mean
Crispin Flintoff.
Crispin Flintoff?
What is
Yeah.
his name?
Konstantin Kissin.
Yeah, why doesn't he have a good British name like John? John Smith.
I think he's from Russia.
Yeah, but he
Um,
does. He wants to be British, doesn't he?
uh,
No.
I'm sure he's very happy with the whichever identity he was born into.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's a difficult one. I don't know. Crispin
he.
Florentino.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
you
That
do
guy,
what you need to do.
whatever that guy's called, he was talking to James Lindsay, and James Lindsay was saying, yeah, like you were saying, kind of old school Christian identity, far
Yeah.
right, feeling that they've been repressed by their own culture, and that sort of breeding a kind of anti-patriotism, a kind of skepticism about their own institutions and stuff, and a sense of victimhood, right?
Mm.
And Quentin Crisp seemed to agree with this. And then I saw him talk to, do you know Andrew Gold?
Yes. Oh, yeah. He runs Heretics.
Yes, Heretics. He's like
Mm.
he reminds me of a sort of Richard Curtis character. It's
He
like
is a bit
it's
like
like a
that, yeah.
radicalized Hugh Grant. And he was talking to Quentin or whatever, and that guy was saying, and I just wrote down I don't want to keep calling Quentin. What is his name? Constantine.
Constantine.
Constantinople. Yeah, he was.
Constantine is quite a common name, but it's the fact that he's called Konstantin Kissin, which is quite an unusual combination.
Yes, exactly. And he said this is how he defined woke, and said that his definition of woke now applied to people on the right. And his definition was an obsession with group-based victimology.
Hmm.
Well, the difference between victimhood and victimology is victimology sounds like the study, the
The
study of
study of
victimhood, right? So
victims.
they're sort
Yeah.
of academics, I suppose. And then he said, we live in a society in which my group, no, sorry, this is sort of saying what they would think. We live in a society in which my group of victims, and it's very important that we identify around our group identity as victimhood. And we are aware in a very special way, in a way that most people are not, just how oppressed we are. And now, on a group basis, we've got to go and use usually authoritarian means
Mm,
to do something about it. So he
mm,
spoke this, and now it's difficult. And I wrote it down. It's difficult to say to read, to read something that was spoken because I can't remember exactly how he
mm.
phrased it. I'm not trying to do him any disjustice here. It made more sense than how I just said it, but it was still a bit
Yeah.
sort of
No,
nonsensical.
that did make sense. It's yeah, people on the right who are obsessed with identity and use authoritarian means to stamp home how much they are victims. But I mean, to me, that sounds like just good old fashioned BNP loonies, that kind of thing. So I'm not quite sure how the extent to which it's a new thing.
Well, I suppose I think what James Lindsay was saying that it involves the sort of tactics that they associate with the woke left, which is
Yeah.
cancellation of people, going through their old tweets and stuff, and nitpicking and sort of doing that kind of thing. The last thing he said, Constantine, whatever, just
Constantine.
that guy.
Yeah.
That's what I always thought about wokeness. There's definitely a woke right, and if you pay any attention to what's happening online, you can see it very clearly. Now, I can see where they're coming from to some degree with this, with the sort of far right Christian identitarianism or whatever you'd call it.
Well, and Israeli
Well,
people.
this is it. What it really, really applies to is Zionism, right?
Mm.
I mean, every
Oh, but
word of it.
Constantine probably didn't get into that maybe because he's
He
probably
certainly
trying to
didn't
walk a
get
bit of a
in.
line there.
Yeah, he didn't get into it, and I don't know why that is, but presumably because
Mm.
he's sympathetic to some
He's
degree.
not that keen
Yeah.
to go down that. Yeah.
And
Whereas, yeah,
so,
I saw. Go on.
no, you go on, please.
I was just gonna interject because I saw some good stuff this week about commenting on Ben Shapiro. Trying to remember who it was now, but and pointing out that his whole sort of career has been based on opposing identity politics, but actually he's his whole sort of raison d'etre is Zionism, which is by its very nature identity politics. So there's something very inherently odd about that. Oh, I know, it was people on the right. It was Tucker Carlson and I can't remember who he was talking to. But
Well,
basically, there are
I'm
these splits now in the conservative uh, bench, if that's the right word, conservative side of the world, um, that are pointing these things out, and that whole sort of Daily Wire thing is kind of coming apart at the seams because of those ideological differences and just inherent mad contradictions, I suppose.
yes, I'm glad you mentioned Tucker Carlson because I'm pretty sure that's who James Lindsay referred to,
Was referring to, yeah,
but it
yeah,
might have been Quentin Crisp. I can't remember. It was, but he came up as an example of somewhat because there is obviously part of the Trump, the whole MAGA thing is a real deep skepticism about US deep state, US
yeah.
foreign policy. And
Hmm.
that, of course, involves Israel,
Hmm.
and to some extent involves questioning the narrative around Ukraine.
Yeah.
And they were talking about when Tucker Carlson went to Russia
Russia. Yeah.
and was sort of glorifying the metro system there,
Yeah.
which is a kind of weak example. But generally, Tucker,
Well, even weaker when he started talking about the supermarkets.
oh yeah.
Do you see that? He was like,
Well, at
"My
least the
God, they've got
supermarkets is
supermarkets."
yeah, they're better than the co-op here, I'll tell you that
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah, I think that's because when he was growing up, because he's 10, 20 years older than us, our side was always saying the Soviet Union is impoverished. There's no produce, and so he was sort of making that
But
point. But it did seem a bit
A
odd.
lot of Americans don't travel outside the US, and
Mm, mm.
they really think that anywhere outside of maybe the US and a few countries in Western Europe basically just live in dirt and don't have any infrastructure or supermarkets or anything. When, obviously it's most countries in the world, in fact, all countries in the world, including North Korea, have an elite that can get just about anything. The poverty is we've managed to, it's global system.
Mm, mm,
We have rich and poor everywhere. You can get McDonald's if you can afford it anywhere, and
mm,
you have people living in shit everywhere as well.
mm.
But
Again,
anyway,
it's one of those uplifting messages that you like to bring
I
to
like
this
to see everybody
podcast.
together. We're all in it together. We're all poor, angry people just on the brink of killing everyone else. And but
Woo!
that we can unite around our hatred of wanting to kill each other, and that can bring us together somehow,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, we've been looking for a replacement for Jeremy Corbyn all these years, and who would have thought he's right under our very
Yeah, well,
nose? It's Daniel Taylor.
I've got the revenge party to think about. And just on that note, get a load
Ooh.
of the
Ooh, yes,
eyebrows on
please.
the guy that crashed the car into Liverpool.
He was fluffy eyebrowed and brown eyes. Let me
Now,
guess.
I couldn't really tell from the photo I saw. I think he might have blue
Yeah,
eyes, but he
yeah.
definitely, his eyebrows are not good enough. He would
He's out.
definitely not be a citizen of the country. People like that would not
You're
live in
getting rid of
my
them. Yeah,
Britain.
yeah.
So you wouldn't,
Well,
because, whatever. Tucker Carlson, yeah. So they were blaming Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson to them is the woke right.
Tucker
Be-
Carlson is the woke, right? That doesn't sound right.
yeah, that's what, no, that's what I'm saying.
That's
That's
what
what,
Constantine was saying.
yes. In one, because he was in both conversations, so he's definitely involved. He wasn't
Oh,
saying
that's
it, but he was
interesting,
in
isn't it?
one of he was on the
I'd
receiving end of
say
that
Tucker
information.
Carlson's just quite a sort of traditional conservative, really. Like, he's
Yeah, but
not.
that's the point. You
Yeah,
was
it's
just earlier
weird.
you were saying traditional conservative, like old school conservative.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's really interesting. I'm surprised that Constantine would sort of mangle that analysis quite like that. But yeah, maybe I'll take a
Well,
look.
this is where the split is because Tucker Carlson was talking to Dave Smith
Yeah,
recently.
Dave, I agree with everything Dave Smith says, basically. He seems
Well, that's
as
very
sound as a
lazy of
pound.
you because you don't even know what
I
he's going
know,
to
I'm just
say.
going to take my opinion from the shelf that is marked
You
Dave
have no.
Smith.
Well, did
I'm
you
going to
agree
mix
with
it up with,
everything that he'll say in the future?
yeah, I reckon.
Fine. All
Yeah.
right, great.
Basically the same.
What a man
Not
of
everyone,
integrity.
just because there's 7 billion people on the planet, do you really think there's
I thought we got
seven,
7 billion people watching this YouTube video.
no, well, certainly not that. But do you really think there's 7 billion like different sort of like views and like sophisticated like and also not to mention like sensible, accurate viewpoints? There's about fucking 5 views that are worth knowing, and Dave Smith's is one of them.
I can't wait for Dave Smith to come out with something that really pisses you off. But then I was thinking, like, what would even piss you off? Nothing. So I can't even think of an opinion that would really get you a go. Because you'd just be like, yeah, well, there's a point to that as well, I suppose.
Well, that's why I'm the only person that you can get on this fucking show
Yeah, I
because
know.
I
No one else.
put up with your fucking
I know it's.
wank
I
every
do. I
about
do.
2 hours every week.
I do appreciate it, Matt. Deep down,
You're
I have.
very welcome.
I have a lot of trouble showing kindness
Yeah, yeah,
and
you do.
nicety to people. But I
You
mean,
do.
anyone could see, from 5 seconds of watching a show, which is about the amount of time that anyone does watch it, that my sort of resentment and authoritarianism and basic sort of scorn towards you comes from like a deep place of
Place
insecurity.
of real love.
No, definitely not. Like insecurity about
Oh,
myself.
yeah.
And the way
Insecurity about
that
yourself.
you're able to just rise above it shows that really you're
Oh,
like the sort of alpha of the podcast, really. And I think that's quite obvious to everyone.
that's that was a that was put in a way sexier way than
Yeah,
it should
shut
have
up.
been.
That's
But
enough. All right. We're moving on from that bit now.
continue.
Yeah. So Tucker Carlson was talking to Dave Smith, and they were identifying the woke right as being Zionists and the way that everything is seen as anti-Semitism and they drag up everything that you've said in the past and try and misconstrue it like that, and that no one can understand what's happening in Israel if you're not somebody who's directly involved. So there's that
Mm,
identity, it's all of that kind of stuff, right? That
mm,
silencing of other people, and obviously
mm.
Douglas Murray was a great example of that. Like, you shouldn't even be able to talk about this because you've not been there. So it's interesting, and I don't know what Quentin Crisp makes of that
Mm.
element of it because they've sort of come up with this idea, sort of spontaneously come up. I think almost like there's a sort of acknowledgement of the Zionist argument being quite weak and getting
Right.
increasingly hysterical, and so to sort of preempt that being a talking point, they said, "Oh no, the woke right is something else,"
Okay.
and then when they start to talk about Zionism as being quite woke in its tactics. Then, I mean, the thing is,
They find a way around it by
I
slightly
mean, I was
rejigging the
saying,
definition.
I made that video about what the fuck is he called? Jonathan Pye years
Hmm.
ago, when
Mm,
Jonathan Pye was saying something about Corbyn and cancel, and he was all confusing. Like
mm,
he was like, "Isn't this what you like?" Basically, there was lots of stuff in the newspapers about Labour members being anti-Semitic,
mm,
and they shouldn't be allowed in the party and people should be kicked out. And Jonathan Pye was like, "Oh, well, isn't this what you want? You woke people, you want everyone to be cancelled and
Yeah,
stuff." And I
yeah.
was pointing out, well, that's exactly the same sort of tactic. And
Mm,
it's not necessarily that these people are woke, but
mm,
like saying, "Isn't that what you want?" It's like
mm.
saying, "Well, you know, I mean, it's very much like the guy crashing into the car into people, and it's like saying, well, that's what Muslims want, is this kind of thing to happen. Like, if you don't like something, if you don't like what you're calling the woke tactics,
Mm,
then when the woke tactic is used on those people, you shouldn't like it either. That's the hypocrisy. It's the same with the free speech
mm,
stuff. If you don't like the fact that you're being silenced for your political
mm.
views, then don't be all happy when it happens to people whose views that you don't like. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same again with the guy in Liverpool, where if you don't like the fact that every time there's some kind of terrorist attack and it is somebody who is not a white man who's 53, and
Mm,
that is then linked by people with a political agenda to saying that there is a problem with Muslims or a problem with a particular culture in this country. If you don't like that, then when it is a 50-year-old white man who happens to retweet Nigel Farage, don't say that is what all Nigel Farage people are like, because it's the same thing.
exactly. Yeah.
Just the fucking
Yeah.
everybody.
Because anything to do with identity politics is just not healthy.
But
Like,
well,
or
it's
at least it's a major risk once you start to go down those lines for the exact reasons that you've just explained.
well, it's well, the thing is, it's something that everybody does.
Yeah.
Apart from
But
me, obviously, and this great show. But the idea is to say that it is a particular group that is
yeah,
doing it, and they're the problem. And I
yeah,
mean, that the free
it's
speech
not
thing is
good, is it?
exactly that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but obviously, well, not obviously, because like you say,
No, clearly not, obviously.
most people don't try or care to stand away from that. But yeah, I think I probably won't put this very well, but I think it would be good to get a community of people who understand that it isn't a good idea to go down those lines of blame. Most human beings are sort of quite similar. Like our skin color and all that kind of thing is not very it's not very relevant to to the way we behave in society. So it would be good to carve out this space of people who are to try and step away from that kind of temptation to blame particular groups, whether that is whether you're on the complete right or the complete left of whatever. So anyway, I said I wasn't going to put that very well, and I haven't. But I think you get the you get the drift of what I'm saying. That's the way to make a healthy society, to not do all that blaming of shit. That said, with the Liverpool, I don't know what they're calling it, attack or fuck up or whatever, with the car driving guy. I don't really know if police should release the name or the identity or the ethnicity or whatever of people. I think that's just almost like a. I'm not quite sure how important that is. I know that there were massive riots last year as a result of these kind of things, but I'm sort of saying it's like
So
you can
they
go either way, really, as long as you do it with confidence. They can say, "Oh yeah, we just don't do that. That's just, we don't release that information. We release it in a week after he's been charged or whatever." But
your
you've got to be
microphone.
consistent with it, I suppose. Sorry, that was the microphone's fault.
Oh, right. Okay, now we're blaming the microphone.
I'm having to hold it like this, like I'm drinking a cocktail.
So is it just not plugged in properly?
It just keeps coming out a little bit at the bottom here, but it's
Is
fine.
is that the same one you always use?
I think so,
You
but
don't know that.
my parents were up tidying this
Fiddling with
area,
the microphones.
fiddling with the microphones and the headphones. So I don't know if
Well, I mean, you can see it. The thing is, you have a political agenda that you want to push,
yeah. And then you
and
take any
right,
thing
and
for any
it's
bollocks,
very difficult to not do that. So I
yeah.
also
But don't do
think,
it. Don't do it
no,
though.
no, 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 no. I also think it's good to be a little bit generous towards people who do that
Who
on
do it?
occasion
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Of
say,
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
look, that's not a strong argument, and here's
Yes,
why, right?
wholly. Yeah, of course.
Because, otherwise you just, I mean, the way what's happened with all this debate bro stuff after having the sort of the years of Vosh and Destiny. I don't know if even know who these
Oh,
people are.
I know Destiny is fucking hell. He was the guy who said that even if we nuked all of Gaza, i.e., exterminating everybody in Gaza, he wasn't sure if that would legally count as in the definition of genocide. I was just like, Jesus Christ, this guy is a fucking
Well,
imbecile.
he's a classic libtard because that's the
Yeah, he
thing. It's
is.
all about, well, it's within the law. It doesn't technically meet genocide, so it's good.
Yeah,
It's a good
yeah,
thing to
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah,
As
yeah.
long as you can kill, you can kill, we can kill all the Jewish people as long as we don't do it in a way that's technically a
Mm.
Holocaust. If you just find another
Yeah.
way of doing it, then
Mm.
it's not, it doesn't really matter if they die. It's all
Mm.
about
Mm.
the presentation or whatever. But yeah, because of all of that, particularly and it's particularly online, but it has sort of spilled over. There is a real blurring now. The way that people think about debates and stuff like that, in a way, is quite good. It has been because you've had these sort of professionalization of sort of debates online in the way that the people that are really good at it, they know all the rhetorical tricks and they always
Mm.
call it out when someone else uses it. And so there's all of, everybody's got familiar with this terminology. And because the thing is that they are tricks, but they're also just naturally how you go to when you're defending something, particularly under
Mm.
pressure,
Mm.
in that kind of situation. But it is obviously good to try and avoid them. But because of
Mm.
all of that kind of stuff, people will dismiss the entire, they'll sort of go the opposite way. They'll dismiss the entire argument because at some point you did something that was a slightly disingenuous. So you find,
Mm.
rather than dismissing the disingenuous bit and then trying to focus on, you
Mm.
know, the actual argument, they'll be like, oh, well, you said this. So
Yeah.
that was really weak, wasn't it? Let's talk about how bad. And that, I mean, that was Douglas Murray all
Yeah.
over the shop.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I mean, he was
To the
very,
nth degree, really.
yeah, I mean, and also he was very bad at it.
Yeah.
He's not, I mean, he's not a good debater. And I think he probably doesn't watch any of that debate stuff and realize like the level of, I don't think that Dave Smith's a great debater. I mean, what Dave Smith did was and this is why it worked really well, kind of by accident, is Dave Smith isn't a debater either. So he didn't go in with any of those kind of guards up or anything. He just
No.
wanted to give his views of stuff.
Yeah.
And then Douglas Murray came at him with the absolute worst like, argument you can imagine. And Dave Smith thought, well, that's not a great argument, Doug, to be fair
Yeah.
to you. I don't think that's really relevant. So it really didn't work very well.
Mm.
But if
Mm.
if you do have somebody that is very good at debating, like Bosch, I'm not a fan of his at all, but he is absolutely tour de force in the
Right.
debate. And it's really scary because they do all this kind of stuff where like it's almost like boxing. Like
Right.
what Bosch will do is he'll really try and rally you up as well. So he'll be giving his points like really calmly, and then suddenly he'll throw in some like really nasty insults at you, and then go back to a really rational
Uh,
point. And it's all over the place. It reminds me of like like when you're boxing and they're like you sort of I don't really know much about boxing, but like they sort of in positioning themselves, and occasionally someone gets like a few jabs.
mm, mm.
It's like they get that moment where they can just go in for the kill, and then they lay off again. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, it wasn't me, Gov," you know.
Mm,
And then
mm.
it's like, and yeah, but so it becomes all about that, and nobody learns anything, nobody changes their view on anything. It's all about like just this game, like it's a level above the rhetorical issues that you normally have because they're always pointing those out. But it's like this other level of
Mm.
madness. Anyway, what were we even talking about? The woke right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why it's important to get back to like sort of principles, isn't it? And sort of stay what your
First
principles are.
principles.
Are we going
First
to?
principles. That's what they always talk about on the debates.
Well,
Let's talk about first principles.
that was a few weeks ago that Konstantin Kisin talked about first principles, but I seem to remember thinking watching it. I don't think what you're talking about there are first
Yeah,
principles.
but if you say that you're talking about
But
first
you're talking about
principles,
first principles.
if you say
But,
you're talking about first principles, then that's great because people are, oh, he's talking about first principles, so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's already won.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wonder what should first principles be? I guess they come down to things like if you're talking about big societal things, like do you think that the most number of people should be not killed in a big thing, or should it be about the happiness of the most number of people and all those kind of things. So those kind of principles I think are really important, because otherwise you can just win arguments with rhetoric. But I should check out Vosh. I don't know Vosh. That sounds like one for me to look into.
I wasn't trying to sell him to you. I feel like
He's so good at debating that I've not seen him, but you've made me watch him.
he is good at debating. Although even the whole debate thing seems to have died down now. He doesn't. I don't think he does debates anymore. He's retired,
Sometimes
unbeaten.
I wonder. Let me
But
say
maybe
this
we can
about-
drag him out for one more debate
with
Jordan Peterson. Did you watch that? Jordan Peterson versus 20 atheists.
Oh God, I did. It was, but I think I saw like a commentary on it from some people who were Christians, and it was just fucking mad. I couldn't follow what the fuck they were saying. I just felt sorry for Jordan Peterson. He looked like he was having a
You
horrible
felt sorry
time
for
with
Jordan Peterson? Jesus
The
Christ.
bits that I saw, he seemed like there was just weird kids just being weird with him. Have I missed? Did I miss something?
I think you were watching a different video.
Oh, really? Maybe I was
You're
watching
watching
the
one of those
AI
porn
version.
videos where they AI the face to make it Jordan Peterson. That's what I always do.
Oh, right,
Whenever I'm watching
yeah.
porn, I use the AI face changer. Jordan Peterson, everyone in this scene.
That's it. So I've missed something there. Honestly, I've not really been very online-y for the last.
Well, you never are.
for the
But
last
that's
week,
kind
so-
of good. You're like the that's what's great about you, is you're the viewer. You're like the
Oh right, yeah. You tell me about this. What's happening there, young whippersnapper?
and then you can
On that old www dot.
and then I'm like, I barely know what's going on, but I sound like
Yeah.
I'm well in tune with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, the Christian thing. Didn't get it. Didn't understand. What were we saying just before that? Oh fuck. First principles. Bollocks.
No, no.
Another edit. We're doing so
I'm
well.
I'm still on for the no edit at this point.
We're still rolling.
I think there's something to be said for like the natural. There's a kind of peeping Tom, like voyeuristic element to something unedited. That's the audience we're going for.
Yeah, the
Bunch of
peeping
pervs.
Tom audience. I think that's for the audience to decide if they want to be peeping.
Yeah, but you have to
Toms on
provide
this.
it or don't provide it. If we provide a highly edited, stylized thing, then it's just another whatever.
Yeah, okay, all right. Then.
You see what I'm saying?
Hope you're enjoying this. You
Yeah, I hope you're really,
sickos.
really getting off on this one.
God, they were
That's
so
why we
bad.
should put this on
Didn't even
loyal
have any
fans.
transitions this time.
I forgot about our loyal fans plan. We'll definitely do an episode on loyal fans one day.
Yeah.
If we'll set a goal, like something ridiculous. Like if we get 10 views of this video,
Yeah.
if 4 people watch this video, we will go on loyal fans and strip naked and have sex with men for 20 years. If we get 5 viewers,
or talk fairly uninformedly about
yeah,
David Cameron.
or maybe just forget about the idea by next week. One of them. We'll sort it out.
Oh, I had a really good point to make, but I've.
What about first principles?
It was something to do with first principles. Maybe we'll come back to it. I mean, we're doing this podcast for years, so I'm sure the idea will come up again.
Yeah. I don't even write anything down. That'll come back to me in 5 years when we're still definitely doing the podcast.
Yeah. So what else was on the agenda?
Trump, as always.
Yeah,
Iran, maybe.
what's
I don't
happening
know
with him?
what's happening with Iran. No war. That's good.
Still no war. End of May. This was when I had said that there
We've still
would
got
be
one
no
more
war.
day.
There's one more day. So we've got away with. I think we've got away with it. God, it's difficult because I think we discussed this last week. But the Americans have made some ridiculous expectations laid down, but I don't believe that they'll stick to them. So I think it'll be okay. It depends if Israel goes completely nuts and strikes Iran and tries to drag the Americans in. Trump said literally yesterday, basically, I don't think they should do that. That would be a bad idea. Don't do that in the nicest possible way. Don't do that. And similar things are happening with the Ukraine talks as well, where there's, again, they haven't gone very far, but it seems to me like they're sort
Ukraine, that looks like it's not going well at all.
No, but I still sort of think that it will be. I don't know. I saw some discussion and analysis of it suggesting that I'm still sort of thinking maybe that will get wind down by the end of this year at least.
Well,
and
that's the
maybe
thing.
the Iran thing will be fixed as well.
You can find analysis to suit any agenda
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure. Yeah, I
really.
mean, no one knows what's going to happen in the future. It's just have to give your best guess, and
But I
that would
think,
be my hope.
well, no one, but what you can see is happening now when it's a shit show. And I
Oh,
think
absolutely. But
Trump,
I would just point out that last year there was no point at which I was like, oh, do you know what? I reckon in a couple of months this might start to improve. Last year I was saying in a couple of months we're going to fucking die from
okay, fair
either of
enough.
these wars. Like that. So is that at
But
least
there was
this
an
year there seems to be some
expectation,
kind of hope.
and I don't know if maybe you're going to try and weasel your way out of it, or maybe you never subscribe to it. But there was an expectation that Trump was going to improve things slightly in some regard in the world. Some people are
Yeah,
thinking that,
I
particularly
reckon.
foreign policy. But
I reckon we should come back to this in a few months because I was one of those people who said that there might be a bit of an improvement, and I think that the improvement's been very ambiguous. In this,
ambiguous
but
improvement.
we did discuss this a few months ago when we talked about, there was a ceasefire in Gaza for a couple of months. There have been talks in Ukraine.
Completely meaningless now. The ceasefire in
Well,
Gaza, the ceasefire in Gaza only
yeah,
proved that you could end the war to then
yeah.
not end it. And they also got a lot of hostages out. And if they'd continued the
Yeah.
ceasefire, they may have come to an end of it. But
Well,
Netanyahu doesn't want to end it, so he doesn't want to get all the hostages out.
they got a couple of thousand hostages out of Ukraine as well. Just last week, they just didn't make a big deal out of it. But that was because
That's
of
cool. We
negotiations.
just
That was
we
one of the
didn't we're
best
not
things that
like
happened.
Israel. We don't make a big deal about it. We're just cool.
No,
Cool
I mean
guys.
the media didn't pick up on it because they wanted to present the negotiations as a
I
failure. I
don't know. I
think.
just feel like I'm getting a feeling that maybe Trump he's a bit of a liar.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, Matt.
yeah,
That's why
maybe
this
just
is
not.
the best news podcast video thing, whatever it is, because we've
Let's
got
come back
the
to it. Let's come back
okay,
to it in a few weeks' time when we can evaluate after maybe 6 months of Donald Trump. Perhaps that could be good.
6 months. Okay, well, I love getting these sort of pretend deadlines, like
Yeah.
it's 24 or whatever. So what date? Give me a date, and then
How
I'll
about
bring it
the
up every week.
how about it's the 30th of May today? How about the 30th of June?
Oh, okay, that's soon
Or how
enough.
about the 6th of actually no. That would be way later. That wouldn't make any
What?
sense. The 6th of August is the anniversary of Hiroshima. Maybe we could have a discussion. I always like to. It would be the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima.
Oh, really? Well, maybe that is a good time for to revisit that type of warfare.
Yeah.
Okay. Or
What was else is on your
no, I don't want to
agenda?
put a pressure. Look, give me a date. Do you want to do end of this month or do you want to do August?
Let's do August the 6th.
August the 6th.
We'll have a new we'll have an international politics special
So
on
what
the
what
6th.
you're saying is world peace, August 5th,
Well, uh,
August 6th. We'll talk about
or
it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be great if there'd been any substantive improvement. But I think we will
I
know
mean, you're
much
really
better
leaving
at that
yourself
point.
as very wishy-washy. Some
Well, I
kind of
am being
improvement.
wishy-washy, but I'm saying I don't think we can really know at the moment what's happening with Ukraine or Iran because negotiations are still ongoing and they are vague.
God, you sound like
In a couple of months'
fucking
time,
Starmer or
I think we
something.
that's a real insult. That's a real insult.
Sorry.
Keir
I
Starmer
take that back. I take that back.
is the villain of this podcast, and you're tiring me with it. I'm just saying. I think we'll have a much better idea in a couple of months. We might actually be able to come to some evaluation on Trump's foreign policy in a couple of
All right,
months.
but
Whereas I don't think
the
we can
point
that right now.
was that you said that it's going to get better. I mean, I kind of did as well, but I'm really pushing this one on you
Yeah,
now.
but
So I'm wash my hands of it.
you can't necessarily say, oh, it's going to get better, and then after 4 months being like, oh, it's not better. Like that's no
Okay,
good.
so
Like
what? So 6 months.
we're talk. I'd have thought a more appropriate time would be over a period of years. But given that we're in this internet age,
Okay,
let's say
given that this
let's
podcast is
say six
very
months.
unlikely to last a
And
year.
if I and if there's zero improvement after 6 months, then perhaps we could, or really it should be by at least by fucking Christmas. Because I last year my fucking Substack was called the worst year ever,
I
and
know
the
that
whole
was
point was that it
preemptive.
was about the worst year, the
That was
worst 12 months.
assuming too much.
And this year I've said that there's likely to be an improvement, and so we should really do it
Right, so
after
it's
12
this
months.
year.
But
That's
we
not. There you go, Matt. Was it that difficult this year?
well, I was trying to accommodate you because we've got to do a podcast.
So, well, if this podcast makes it to the end of the year,
Yes.
and by
A big hello
implication,
to all you truckers out there.
by implication, the world is still around. Then our
Yeah.
end of year special will be about how wrong Matt was with
Yeah,
the.
and also I tell you what, there is one of the really bad things is that all the European countries, and I think the Americans as well, have said, "Oh yeah, no restrictions now on the use of weapons from Ukraine." Do you see that a couple of days ago?
Well, I
So they're
saw.
just lobbing missiles in, and that's why
Yeah,
I've been contacting someone in Moscow at the moment, and like their internet's been down for days because there've been drone strikes all over Moscow. So it's
Jesus.
just like it's. I don't really. It's very difficult to know what's going on the ground with it all, but certainly hitting Moscow is a with regular what seems to be much greater regularity. It does not seem to be good.
Yeah.
So it's weird though. I find the whole thing weird because it's like, why aren't there more images from what's going on? Like, so for instance, they keep talking about how every day like 1,000 people die in these trenches. Where are there any images from these trenches, and where are there any images of bodies and anything like that? I don't understand.
You're talking
Like,
about Ukrainian deaths.
sorry, I'm talking about Ukraine here. Yeah, it's like,
Well, the
and
journalists,
Russian. I mean, like,
but I mean,
where is the footage of this war?
it's similar in Israel, right? The journalists are permitted to go into various places by the
Mm,
military,
mm,
and they're not shown, or the sort of journalists that are allowed in will are the ones that don't want to show the
mm,
casualties on the Ukrainian side. I mean, it's this is something that kind of goes back to Vietnam, right? One of the issues with the Vietnamese War was the Vietnamese War. It was all their fault. The problem with the Vietnam War was that it was the first time that it was properly televised, and they didn't really think about the implications of that. And so they did have just journalists wandering around recording, US troops with limbs missing and stuff. And eventually it was that kind of thing that got the morale down to the point where they couldn't continue the war. And obviously in Ukraine, there is a massive propaganda war internally about what they should be doing. And Zelensky doesn't want to be put in a position where he's got to make his negotiating position will be weakened if there's clearly a big push by
mm,
the public of Ukraine to end the war soon.
mm.
So they
Yeah,
obviously don't want to show any of this stuff.
yeah. No one wants to show any of it. The Russians don't presumably want to show it. The Americans don't want to show it. The Ukrainians don't want to show it. And I guess there's a possibility in the end that maybe the casualties will be much lower than we've been led to believe. Because
Well, that is,
maybe
yeah.
it's all a little bit like fortified, sort of trench warfare, but a little bit Cold War-y. I mean, that's a very optimistic way of looking at it. All indications throughout the entire period have been that there are hundreds of thousands of dead, with well over a couple
Well,
of
it
million
seems like the way
casualties
that
all
Ukraine is
told.
getting through its reserves and dragging people into the military sounds like they have lost
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
their
yeah,
troops.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But we shall revisit.
Right, end of the year, Matt humiliation special.
Yeah, you can humiliate me at the end of the year over my bad foreign policy predictions,
Hey, you might
but
be right, Matt.
you can start to do that for the anniversary of Hiroshima.
Yeah, we'll slowly build up to it. But who knows? Maybe things will go well.
Yeah,
Keir
let's hope not.
Starmer?
What's happening with him? Oh, so all that weird shit with his houses and his properties and what the fuck was
Oh
all that
fuck yeah,
about?
should we just talk about that? That's
Yeah,
really
have you've been following that quite well, haven't you? I didn't.
there's very little to follow, but yes. I know. This is the
What's
rest of
your
my life.
theory?
I know everything
Theory?
about it. Let me just say something very quickly for the truckers so they understand what's going on.
Oh yeah.
So, and then we you can ask me anything you want, Matt,
So
and
our
I'll
prime
tell you.
minister. Yeah.
Yes, our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, famous for being a very, very boring man,
Hmm.
but
And supportive of Ukraine.
and supportive of Ukraine. Two things: boring and supportive of Ukraine. Almost suspectly boring. Like this man must have some hobbies. He
Yeah.
never mentions what they are, but he must have some. And also, why does he like Ukraine so much? They're the only two things that we knew, the only two questions. But they've both been answered in a miraculous. Well, it's interesting because he is seen as very boring, but then all the rumors about him are very exciting. So, the
Yeah.
rumor that's been going on for a long time was that he was having affairs all over the place, constantly seen without his wedding ring. Then last week it was that he was doing drugs with other EU leaders. So I do
Oh
like.
yeah, the one on the train that
Yeah,
you're talking
I think maybe all of this is being pushed by Starmer's team. It's like a sort of like secretly
yeah,
that
to
we're trying
make
to
him
show
seem really
actually
cool.
this guy, he's sort of like Bruce Wayne, you know? It's like
Yeah,
Bruce Wayne,
yeah.
but instead of turning into Batman, he's turning into like, I don't know, Mick Jagger or something. It's
Starman.
Starman, that's good. Yeah, Starman who goes around having
I
sex
have
and
to be
doing
a
coke.
symbol, Alfred. As an ordinary
Yeah.
prime minister, I
He's
can't do anything. But as Starman,
Well, he still
I
doesn't
can
do
be
anything.
what the people need me to
He
be.
just dresses up in a leotard and goes and does loads of blow and has sex with young boys. But it's a kind of superpower. So let's quickly
Oh dear.
break down what the story is. So I read this story on the BBC News a few weeks ago. It was a tiny little story, and I assumed it was some sort of electrical fire or something. But the story
Mm,
went, a fire has broken out at Keir Starmer's property in Kentish Town or wherever the fuck it is in Camden. Because
mm,
obviously, until very recently, that's where he lived. Now he lives in Downing Street. But he's obviously kept his house. And what came out later is apparently that his sister lives there or sister-in-law.
mm,
Um, but anyway, there was a fire at the house, and that was all that was reported. And said, fire crews are attending, blah blah blah. I was like, all right, okay, sounds like some kind of it, whatever, like a toaster or something. What something had
mm,
happened. I didn't hear anything else about it, and then George Galloway released a video, which I sent to you.
mhm,
This was about a week ago. It was about sort of 30 minutes of him going through all of the stuff that's been going on. And it's all kind of from the mainstream media, including that
mm,
little BBC News story. And none of them were really connected at the time, and still aren't massively. But
mm,
they were all about fires and damage to things related to Keir Starmer. So first there was this house fire.
mm,
I think second was the car. I can't remember. There's been three, but one was that his Toyota SUV, which I think is the same Toyota that we talked about in last week's episode. That was exciting. That car's been through a lot,
mm,
crashed into by a cyclist, and then apparently it's been
mm.
torched. But the car
Mm,
was no longer Keir Starmer's. He sold it. He sold it
mm.
to a neighbor of his. So I think it was near that property. It's all happened on that street. So the
Right.
house was burnt, some kind of arson attack on the house, some kind of arson attack on the car. And then separately, a house in Islington
Mm,
was also attacked in some sort of arson related thing.
mm.
The house in Islington, it's a bit more vague how that's linked to Starmer. Most newspapers have just said that it's linked to him. I did read in Bloomberg that he used to live there.
Right. So
I,
maybe these things are just a coincidence.
a
It's only
coincidence.
it's only three things:
A coincidence.
an X car, an X house, that may or
How
may
much
not even be.
arson do you think's going on in this country?
Well, but also Starmer is notoriously cool.
You are really
Probably just dropped a doobie and
you
and
really
burned his
are the
house down.
worst conspiracy theory guy. The mention of any sort of collusion on anything, and you're like, oh, it
God.
must be a coincidence.
Yeah,
I was out with the Twin Towers. Maybe it was just two plane
it
crashes.
was. It was just two separate plane crashes. That was just a mistake. It's probably
Anyway,
air traffic control just fucking up.
um,
Probably a 53-year-old white guy in
yeah,
in air traffic control making another
no, on
bungle.
in the plane.
Probably
Anyway, so the flat,
he
yes, you used to live there apparently.
then he blamed it
But
on some
well,
swarthy individuals.
I wonder if they say that it's linked to him because
Yeah,
it's owned by him. He used to live there, but he still owns it. It's been converted into flats anyway. I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe it is just linked to him. I mean, the other thing is the notoriously lazy media in this country, where you try and read about a story like this, and there's very little information in the
Mm,
original article on it, and every subsequent article is just repeating the information from the first. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just like
yeah,
Tusi on bloody Twitter, just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
regurgitating what they've
yeah.
read. No one's actually looking into it.
But the thing you're missing out is that allegedly these arsonists are all Ukrainian models.
I don't think that's allegedly.
That's accurately, is it?
They're all
So now
Ukrainian.
that's the thing that everyone's a bit freaked out about
They're all
is that,
Ukrainian citizens or from Ukraine
yeah,
or born in Ukraine, now living in the UK. Yes, and they're all young men, about 20 to 26 years old or something. And yes, they've got jobs like um, struggling actor, model, masseuse.
mm,
It's all like none of them just got a normal job or studying. You know, it's a good time to study in your early 20s. But
it
these
is.
guys are out there doing all of, and that's the kind of work, if you're in a city like London, that you might get a little bit of, but probably can't live off. But
Yeah.
it does allow you to enter into a world. I'm getting most of my knowledge from Morrissey's album Bone a Drag, but
And your own
yeah,
fantasies.
yeah. Enter into Piccadilly Polares in the West End. You meet,
Mm,
if you're in modeling, you're not going to make much money, but you are going to meet a lot of people who have a lot of money who
mm.
are really interested in modeling themselves, but have unfortunately outgrown it. But they do have money and they do want to be they want to hang out with models. So this is what's people see. Okay, so there's three what's the word? Ideas about what is but there's a fourth one now, which is that they're completely unrelated and just random, which I quite like. That's Matt's idea. But there are three ideas that have been put forward. One by the mainstream press. So the mainstream press didn't say anything about it for a long time.
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
reported these separate incidents, a bit like you. It's like, well, there was an arson there, and then there was an arson there, and then eventually, like, okay, they're probably related, aren't they? Because they're all involving Keir Starmer and Ukrainian boys. But what is the connection here? And radio silence from the media for a long time, which led, I think, better people that know more about the stuff than me, that there was a what's it called put on the whole thing?
D notice.
Denotice. But that clearly isn't the case because they start to feed information,
Mm,
like the fact that they
mm.
were Ukrainians. And then the big reveal that it was all Russia,
Yeah,
which they haven't actually said. All they've said is that that's being investigated,
yeah,
which is a given at this point. It's like saying if you had like a crash in Liverpool where someone rammed a car into it, like the police would suspect it might be a Muslim to begin
yeah,
with.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like if
yeah.
anything weird happens, the police suspect it might be Russian. They
It
also
sounds,
suspect it might not be, but they always are going to be looking into Russia, obviously. But the way it's put in the newspaper is that they think it's Russia, that it is Russia, that they'll soon find out that it's Russia.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that doesn't strike me. I mean, all the arguments are so batty that yeah, it
Yeah,
could
yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it could be Russia, right? The other
yeah,
argument clearly
yeah,
is that it's Ukraine,
yeah,
and these
yeah.
are people that are
But
somehow.
without any apparent motive. No big geopolitical motive anyway, because Starmer's
Well, it would
on
be the
Ukraine's
same.
side.
What would be the geopolitical motive like from Russia? Like, what is it's the arson attack like threatening? It's a threat to his family, I suppose. Is that the idea that we could get to people that I guess so. I don't know.
I guess maybe like if you are uh if you live by the sword, you might be the kind of people who just like to throw your weight around anyway, even with your allies, maybe. It also I don't know if anyone's pointed this out, but it also sounds like the plot of Zoolander.
Yeah, no, I have heard that. I can't remember. I've watched. So, as I say, nobody's been reporting it, but it's been all
Yeah,
over YouTube. Everyone's been talking about it.
yeah, yeah.
And yes, I watched a video where somebody did mention that it is exactly the plot of you, Zoolander, isn't it? That you hypnotize models to become assassins. So, but then isn't it in Adam Curtis that they find out that the information about Iraq is from The Rock? Do you
What
remember that?
the actor, The Rock, the wrestler, or
No, the film.
the film?
In
Yeah,
Alcatraz that we're going to
yeah,
remake. Do you remember?
yeah. I
No,
love The Rock.
so the information about chemical weapons that was supposed to come out
Oh yeah, yes, they
was
did
was
get the
describing
information
like, and then an
from
expert
Nicolas
was
Cage.
saying normally, like highly dangerous substances are not carried around in glass balls
Yeah.
that can easily break. That sounds like the plot to the film The Rock.
Yeah, yeah. That was very effective, that film, in making chemical weapons seem all the more
That
terrifying.
film does, it's like I do know like something about those green glass
Yeah, it
balls,
was
like
great. It was such a good
very
idea.
vivid, stays with
Yeah,
you. It was very good.
yeah, but like it would just be the worst way to transport a weapon. Maybe they do that though. I don't know. I'm not really quite sure
Well,
how
according
chemical
to
weapons
this
work.
expert, they don't. So,
They surely can't. They surely can't.
well, it's the glass balls, but they're also like on a little thing, like a bead, like a
Yeah,
pearl
yeah, yeah, yeah,
necklace.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Like
it's
a
so
massive, like
easily
one of those
fall.
old-fashioned curtains.
Yeah.
I'd have thought that there'd be more like the Persil washing tablets that I get are outside. More squidgy.
Well, I guess the idea is that the glass would be able to contain them, whereas maybe it would dissolve the
Oh,
plastic.
dissolve in the plastic.
That's what
Yeah.
I thought. When
Oh,
I was
so
watching The Rock, I thought, well, this makes a lot of sense.
yeah, it did seem to make sense
Yes,
at the time.
I thought The Rock made the most sense of any
Yeah,
film I've seen.
yeah,
That's what blew me away about it.
yeah,
Well, it certainly makes more sense than reality at the moment. So, getting back to Keir Starmer
yeah,
and the Ukrainian rent boys. So, that's the third possibility.
yeah,
You've got Russia, for some reason, are hiring Ukrainians to
yeah.
sabotage Keir Starmer's
It
property
sounds
as a
very
kind
difficult to
of
do.
threat
Mm.
towards Starmer to get him to change his policy on
A little
Ukraine,
bit
even though we
like
don't know
the
exactly what it would
Salisbury
be.
poisoning type thing. Like, a little bit like that kind of
Well,
thing.
the
It
Salisbury
sounds a little bit like
poisoning, I
that.
mean, Corbyn talked about that. He was widely
Mm,
mocked, as always,
mm,
but
mm.
that doesn't add up at all. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever listened to,
Craig
what's his
Murray.
name? I was going to say Al Murray, the pub
Yeah,
landlord on it.
yeah. Craig Murray,
Yeah,
the pub landlord who helped get Julian Assange out of prison.
yeah.
Let's get him out of the fucking jail, shall we?
And yes, that's one. Second is it's
Yeah,
Ukrainians themselves.
that's all bonkers.
It
That the
could be
whole
a
thing is just
Ukrainian splinter cell. I mean, there's got to be
mm,
some distance in Ukraine
yeah,
who want to see things
hmm
go a different way.
yeah,
I mean, that is the thing about a state disintegrating. I mean, Ukraine have been
yeah,
doing
yeah,
some wild stuff all over Europe. So I
yeah,
wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if it could be some sort of fringe Ukrainian
hmm
military. But why the young models?
Yeah, exactly. And how do you recruit
They've got
like
so much
21,
going for
22
them.
year old models to do like some kind of sabotage campaign? It all seems
So
so
that's why the third
bizarre.
option is that, well, to put it bluntly, Keir Starmer is obsessed with young Ukrainian men and having sex with them all the time. And on top of that, he's not paying them or something. It's like, I'll get
Yeah,
away with
yeah,
this. This won't come back on
yeah,
me at
yeah.
all.
He didn't have enough change in his pockets,
Yeah.
and they saw his wedding ring when he took his wedding ring
Yeah,
off. They're like,
yeah.
we'll get him for this. We'll
Right,
blackmail
exactly.
him.
He's like, no, there's a black hole in my bank account. So
Yeah,
then he's enraged a bunch of Ukrainian men that he's been having sex with or something and promised
enraged like
payment.
three of them.
Yeah, yeah.
He's notoriously bad at paying.
Three so far. We don't know. Or maybe they all grouped together and these three were the ones that they got the short end of the stick. They had to go and do the deed. But it seems as likely as anything else. I mean, some people who see, are very, very confidently think that is what's going to come out in court. So these guys are going to court fairly soon.
Right.
And presume, well, if the media decide to cover it at all,
Mm.
which seems unlikely at this point,
Wouldn't
then
that
they
be
are going to
funny if
have to.
Corbyn came back into power? If Corbyn became prime minister by some kind of default because of this male
I would
model
like that,
scandal.
yes, but I really don't. I think you're reaching.
Yeah, yeah. That's what this podcast is all about, though, Daniel. Reaching for back into 2018 so that we can somehow recreate the ghost of Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what's gonna be going on with Starmer. Yeah, ask me anything. I think we've covered it all. There's
I,
literally nothing else. No one
I,
knows anything about this except
I
what I
actually
said.
I actually saw Jeremy Corbyn the other day.
What in Bath? In Bath.
Nope.
In
I
Bath.
I went to the How the Light Gets In festival, and he went behind the cheesy chip van to do selfies with the staff,
To do some anti-Semitism.
and he didn't do that. And
He didn't do what?
because he was pretending to be the chef, I thought it would be funny. Well, I didn't think it would be funny. I just sort of just uncontrolledly just was being a bit, and so I went up to the thing and I said, "Jeremy, my chips are late. I've been waiting 30 minutes for my chips." And like I pretended to be angry at him not providing me with chips. Do you know what he did?
No,
He said, "You're going to have to wait for your chips because this is an era of austerity."
man,
And
he's so sharp,
it was good.
so on it.
And I said, "Oh, I'll just go and wait for my chips for 5 years, then shall I?" And he goes, "It'll be a lot longer than that, young man."
Man, he's a very funny
Quite a
guy.
it was funny.
He's got a really dry sense of humor in
Yeah,
general.
it was great.
But yeah. Oh well. He's an anti-Semite, so fuck it. Fuck it, man.
Was that
Cancelled.
the end of the agenda?
No, we could talk about the fucking EU, but hopefully we've gone over an hour and then we don't have to.
Oh God, yeah, we've done like an hour and
Oh,
20
thank God
minutes.
for that. Well, we'll talk about the EU next time. Definitely.
Oh, EU.
Absolutely.
Oh, what a shame. That's my favorite
I
topic.
know. I'm gutted. No, I do want to talk about it. It's just that it's such a nightmare of a thing. Much better, it's not talking about Ukraine. Hopefully there'll be a lot more Ukrainian arson by next week, and then we can avoid talking about the EU again.
All right. Okay. Yeah. What a wish. What a wish list.
Has it been an
Models,
hour?
models committing arson. That's what we need. Like that's in Zoolander as well. When they smoke cigarettes with the in the petrol
Well,
station
that's the thing.
whilst
Maybe they were
covering
actually
each other in
assassins,
petrol.
but they were just so covered in petrol and
Yeah.
having such a gay old time of it that they ended up causing all these
But
fires.
they weren't injured or anything at the scene. They were just, how did they catch them? Or does no one really know that yet?
That's a really good question. Question for another time. No, I
Mm,
don't think that's been released. Probably
mm,
CCTV if it's London. I mean, just it's fucking
mm.
everywhere. Just
Yeah.
they. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen anything else where they've tracked people with CCTV. I mean, literally just every movement. Once they
Right.
get
Yeah.
get you on one, then
Mm,
they just find you like here's him entering the station, leaving the station. Here's him in Tesco's.
mm,
Here's him leaving
mm,
Tesco's.
mm, mm.
And it's yeah. So I
For all you
think
Americans out there, this is the surveillance state that is coming for you if you
well yeah,
follow the
it's
British
yeah.
model.
America's yeah. Well yeah. Well yeah yeah yeah.
But we're okay. It's all right.
Well,
Daniel lives in London. He doesn't feel under threat from the state.
I record myself saying the most racist, anti-Semitic things every week on a podcast
There's a kind of
just to cover.
immunization.
Yeah, yeah. The joke's on you. I meant to do that, you know?
The police are just like, that's all right. It's just Daniel with his
Yeah.
anti-Semitism.
Have we done an
He's
hour?
always doing
I
that.
want to press stop.
Oh God,
Stop.
don't worry. You can definitely press stop. We've done like an hour and 20 minutes.